My name is Jürgen Van Gorp. I'm a partner of the Bayard Partnership, and I'm right now working as a program and project manager. The current assignment is in a large company that has its own bank, and I'm doing the larger projects within that bank. Lately, I also got a whole program assigned that was more about the internal, so the business projects. We are moving to a more SAP-oriented banking infrastructure. It will become SAP standard as much as possible, but there are some company specifics in that software that they really have to start coding themselves. Next to that, we're also changing all the hardware and all the infrastructure for a banking connection, which is a Swift banking connection. In parallel, we are inventing new network components that will help us for a full-blown disaster recovery, where we can move from one data center and the other data center in 15 minutes without one single byte lost. So all of these things are running in parallel. And for each of those single projects, we have separate teams working on them. And that means that right now I'm following up on something like 14 project tracks. It was 17, but we cut out a few. But that means that there's a lot of project tracks that need to be followed up upon. I had a quite usual life in that sense. I grew up in Turnhout. My parents changed, when I was younger, my parents changed housing a few times. And at the age of 11, we landed in Lichtaert. And here I have all my friends. My whole youth took place here in Lichtaert. I had quite an unordinary study track in that sense that when I was younger, I got punished on a near daily basis because I wasn't paying attention in school. And later on, when I went to the higher studies, then teachers started seeing that, yes, there was more into it. And from there, I went up in the studies, finished first in the mid school. And then I went for industrial engineering. After industrial engineering, I went to work while I was waiting for my duty, so my civil duty in the army. Then later on, I continued my studies as a civil engineer. Continued later on with doing a PhD study. That took quite a while because I was also teaching for a professor. And after my PhD study, I went working, of course. I taught for a while. I was self-employed in parallel. And that self-employment took more and more time. But while I was working, I'm still studying right now, to be honest. I studied TOGAF, so enterprise architecture, PMI, project management, Prince2, in the works. And I'm still studying technical things and project manager things today. After my PhD studies, I started teaching. So half of the time was teaching, half of the time was working as a consultant for companies. And I would say over the years, the companies were more and more into demand that I was going to work with them full time. And at some point in time, I had to make a choice. It was either teaching or going to a company. Now, the teaching part had the bad luck that right at that moment there was a space checker asking me to work for them full time, which is literally space technology. And okay, I had to make a choice, and I went into the technical part of the project management, where I also did hands-on jobs. That technical project management, later on changed into more theoretical project management, which means that I'm now really doing program management for mainly two companies that are changing between themselves all the time. By far the most favorite assignment was with Space Checker. And the reason for that is it was literally rocket science. I mean, we were really into satellites. We had our own 12-meter dishes in the backyard. I was in the electronics. I was also thinking about the coding, the software coding that I did. I did technical checking. I was also a manager at that moment, but a manager that, well, with 10 arms. And I was so deep into it that even I spent my Christmas holiday finding an error in one of the breadboards that we used for the satellite modems. That was that much fun, inventing things, fixing things, and still making sure that the money was where it needed to be. So it had all aspects of a company, and that was so much fun that was by far my favorite. I thought of myself as being a generalist, but depending on which project I do and depending on which customer I work for, I'm wearing a different cap. Right now, I would say my real specialism that I have right now is project management, because I do different types of project management. I succeed in getting or pulling them together and running them in parallel. I think that my main specialism really is I'm quite well in analytics, and that means when I assign the project, I really quite fast can see what's the true issue, which are the problems in the project or in whatever needs to happen, and that is I would say that's my real specialism, and it translates then as a project manager, or it translates as an electronics engineer, or it translates as a problem fixer. But that's, I would say, the analytics is the main part. Openness to making errors, openness to express yourself, to allow mistakes, making sure that if you make a mistake that other people know about it and that you can fix things. I know for myself that I make a lot of mistakes. And also the people in my project teams, they make mistakes too. I for myself, I know that out of every 50 actions, one of them is an error. And once you know that, then suddenly, if somebody makes an error, you're no longer in the blame game. You're just in the how can we solve things game. You need to always be able to think forward and solve an issue. That's the thing that are now, because the people in my teams are allowed to do so, also my team members allow me to do so. And I can just spawn ideas, I can spawn new technologies and all that, and they will just say, no way, I can't do that, or you can't do that. So and suddenly you're in a specific movement where the one helps the other, and we're moving forward. And it's either that, or you go into a fear situation where everybody is a fear of new things, everybody's a fear of making errors. And well, just the forward thinking, allowing people to make mistakes and allowing people to think for themselves, well, that's what I really want to see in projects. I don't want to micromanage people, really. That's the worst thing you can do, micromanaging people. If people can work for themselves, that's the moment where you really have high value projects. As somebody who is always busy, there's a lot of work that's coming my direction. People rely on me of doing that work. They also see me, I would say, as somebody who's always caring. I'm also doing the doctor's work during the camps and all that. And if people are in trouble, it's easy to go to me, because I always want to have a solution, not the smart talk. I'm not the guy who you can chat with about the weather. But if you have a problem, then usually I will try to find a solution for you. A well-meant thank you. Of course, if you work for people, if you worked hard, then of course you're happy if at the end of the day you're being paid well. But what I realized, not only with me but also with other people, if people are just happy with what you're doing, and if you get a thank you at the end, that is why you are working, that's why you're doing things. I would say that I'm a technical guy. I'm in electronics, I'm in radio amateurism, I'm in astronomy. I work with electronics and I work with computers all day, even in the evenings. Most of the electronics is about the new technologies that are popping up. Raspberry Pi, main boards. Some of the base electronics also, so that's going back to the analog systems. Nobody still knows that, but every now and then I'm still doing that. And the reason is that I want to keep on track with latest technologies. You see so many like IoT, you see that so much in news right now. I've seen so many IoT boards, but I don't really believe much in them, mostly because of a security item. So that's something I really want to get into and make sure that I know what's going on. I also have been in the youth movement, I've been in many organizations, but because of the busy life that I have as a professional right now, I had to cut down on most of these hobbies. It's the spirit of Bayard right now that I really like. It's the spirit of helping out each other. For instance, if we are on Yammer, somebody posts a question on Yammer, it won't take hours to get the responses and the answers coming in. And I would say most in general, that's the thing I like on everyone in Bayard. That's the spirit of helping out each other without asking something back. And that makes that whenever you're working with such a team, you're not working on your own anymore. That's the added advantage that you have with all these people thinking with you. It's no longer one person fighting the world. No, it's really a lot of people that are helping each other forward, and that's the strength of Bayard, really. Always continue with studying. Study new project management technologies. Keep the soul sharp. That's what you need to do. Always keep studying new stuff, even stuff that you didn't like before or stuff that you didn't know about before. But do new things. Make sure that you're never ever just relaxing on the skill set that you have today, because that skill set will no longer be sufficient tomorrow. So you always have to study new technologies, and no matter in what area that you're working in, be sure that you always have the sharpest blade in the end. Something in research and development. If I could do project management with inventing new tools and technologies, that would be really great. That goes back to the years where I was in Space Check, where we had to solve so many problems, also technical problems. That was really the big fun. And that means that if I could ever get into research and development, no matter where or what, I will probably take the opportunity, yes. What I see happening today is already that companies want to adopt agile and they want to be more agile, but they really don't know how to do that. They want to adopt to new technologies, but they also want to adopt to new regulations and companies or countries becoming more nationalistic. And what we need to be able to do as program managers is explain to them and tell them how they can adopt agility but still have control over their company. And I think there lies the complexity in how to handle projects in the future. What I see happening is that the environments are changing a lot faster and becoming more and more complex. The other thing you can see is that everything is more and more connected. What happens then is well, in the first place, you need to be able to contain the damage if you're going on internet. But what happens in the first time is you need to be able to adapt to all these changes. And that's the thing I really see in larger companies. Many larger companies, they think in economics of scales, not realizing that becoming a larger company also makes that you're slower and you do no longer have that agility. And that's the thing I'm now seeing, that larger companies may not have the advantage in this fast-moving world. The future right now is very much dependent on economic, but not only economic, also political influences. A few years back I would have answered that we would see a lot of impact from companies countries like Japan and Singapore, India. What I see now is that many countries are getting back onto their own and are really protective. So right now I wouldn't be able to answer. I'm a kind of fear of how many countries are becoming more and more nationalistic, and how that will impact companies too. So that's the thing that I see happening in the future, and I can't predict what direction it will take. I must say I suffer from the thing that I'm always telling everyone else. If you don't know what you want, then that's where you end up with. And I, for myself, I go more in a general direction. I would like to go more in research, and that's what we do with the Bayard Academy. There are so many ideas in the Bayard Academy. There's so little time that we can spend on that. I have, like for instance, David and myself, we have plenty of ideas. Well, I have other people also who are working in the Bayard Academy. So many ideas, so many research that we want to do, so little time. So where do I end up in the future? I hope with more time in my life, but in the end it will be most in a general direction, which will be project management, which will be engineering, which will be research, and also teaching probably.